Once we have created a database in the MongoDB server, in that database, we can store all the related data. And for that, we create collections inside a database. So currently, if you see in our MongoDB server, we have these four databases. Out of this, admin, config, and local, these three are system databases. And in the last lecture, we created this demo database. And we learned how we can create a database and how we can delete a database. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to delete this demo database. And for that, here, if I run this db command, you will notice that this db object, it is pointing to this demo database, and we want to delete this demo database. So on the db object, as we learned in the last lecture, we have a method called drop database. And this drop database method, it is going to drop the database to which this db object is pointing to, and it is going to return us an object. So this drop database method, it is returning us this object. In that object, we have two properties. We have this OK property, which is 1. That means this command was executed successfully. And then we have this dropped property, which tells which database was dropped. So in this case, this demo database was dropped. Now I'm going to create a new database. For that, as we have learned, we can use this use command followed by a name for the database. In this course, what we want is we want to design a database for a hotel booking app. And here I'm going to call this database as Book My Stay. So this is my database name. And this database is going to store all the related data which we need in order to develop a hotel booking app. So let me go ahead and let me create this database. Now, currently, this Book My Stay database, it is created in memory. It is not created in the MongoDB server yet. As we learned in the last lecture, in order to actually create this database in the MongoDB server, we need to have at least one collection in this Book My Stay database. Now, before we create a collection in this Book My Stay database, let's first understand what a collection actually is. A collection in MongoDB is similar to a table in a relational database. Basically, a collection is a group of documents that share a common structure, but it can also have different fields. So just like how we have tables in a relational database, in the same way, we have collections in a non-relational NoSQL database like MongoDB. And unlike relational databases, MongoDB collections do not require a predefined schema. Each document can have different fields. Now, we will understand this point in great detail in the coming lectures of this course. But for now, you need to understand that just like how we have tables in a relational database, in the same way, we have collections in a non-relational NoSQL database. So let's say we have a database called Book My Stay in our MongoDB server. Now, in this database, we can have different collections to store different types of data. So for a hotel booking app, we might want to store hotel related data. We might want to store user related data. We might want to store reviews given to a hotel. And we might also want to store the bookings which has been made by the hotel booking app for which we are designing the database. So we can store related data inside a collection in a database. So in our Book My Stay database, we might have a collection called hotels, which will store hotel related data. We might have a collection called users, which will store user related data. We might have a collection called reviews, which will store review related data. And we might have a collection called bookings, which will store booking related data. And each collection is a collection of documents. So a collection is like a table in a relational database, and each collection can have documents, and each document is similar to a table row in a relational database. So here if I take an example of this users collection, let's say in this users collection we are storing the user related data. So in this users collection, let's say we have three users. The first user is Mark, second user is John, and third user is Mary. So these are called as documents. A document is a JSON-like object which stores a specific type of data. In this case, each of these three documents are storing a data related to a user. Now again, we will talk about documents in great detail in the coming lectures of this course. But I hope now you understand what a collection is. A collection is a collection of related data. And with this, let's go ahead and let's create our first collection in the book.my_state database, which we have just created. Now, there are different ways in which we can create a collection inside a database. There is one explicit way in which we can create a collection, and there is an implicit way also in which we can create a collection inside a database. Now, we already know how we can create a collection explicitly. For that, on the db object, so this db object points to the currently selected database. And in this case, the currently selected database is this book.my_state. So let me first go ahead and let me run show db's command. And here you will notice that this book.my_state database is not listed here. And the reason for that is currently we have created this book.my_state database and it is created in memory. And once we add a collection in this book.my_state database, it will be actually created on the disk in the MongoDB server, and then it will be visible in this list. So since the db object is pointing to this book.my_state database, on that db object we have a method called createCollection. We already talked about this method in the last lecture. And when we call this createCollection method, there we also have to specify a name for the collection. Here, I want to call this collection as hotels. And now if I go ahead and if I execute this command, this createCollection method, it is going to create this hotels collection in this book.my_state database. And this createCollection also returns an object. And in that object, you will see that we have one property, which is OK, and its value is 1. That means this command was executed successfully and a collection called hotels has been created. And since now this book.my_state database has a collection, now if I go ahead and if I list all the databases by running this show db's command, you will see that now book.my_state database is also listed here. So using this createCollection method is one way of creating a collection inside a database. And another way is the implicit way. So here we are creating a collection explicitly, but we also have an implicit way. And the implicit way is to create a collection inside a database by simply trying to insert a document in a collection which currently does not exist. Now, what do I mean by that? So first of all, let's say we want to check what are all the collections available in this book.my_state database. For that, we can execute a command called show collections. And if I run this command, you will see that currently in this book.my_state database, we have one collection, which is hotels. Now what I'm going to do is on the db object, I'll try to access a collection, let's say users. Now remember that this users collection does not exist in this book.my_state database. So what will happen if I run this command? Let's see. So in this case, it has returned us book.my_state.users. But this collection currently does not exist in this book.my_state database. So here what I can do is I can simply say db.users.insertOne. So using this insert_one method, and we can call this insert_one method on a collection. So we are assuming that this users is a collection, but currently this collection does not exist in this book.my_state database. But still I'm trying to insert a document in this users collection. So for that, I'm using this insert_one method, and to this insert_one method, we need to pass a document. Now, in simple words, a document is nothing but a JavaScript or a JSON object. So here, you can either pass a JavaScript object or you can pass a JSON object. And inside that, you can specify what properties do you want to have for that document. For example, here I want to have a name for the user. Let's say the name of the user is John. So name is going to be a string value, so that's why I'm wrapping it within single quotes. Then I also want to have an age property for this user. Let's say age is 28, and I also want to have a gender property for the user, and this gender is again going to be a string value, so I'm going to wrap it within single quotes. You can also wrap it within double quotes, and there let's specify the value. So let's say gender is male. So here I'm trying to insert this document inside this users collection, which currently does not exist. Now, if I go ahead and if I run this command, what will happen is first this users collection will be created, because currently this user collection does not exist in the bookmystay database. So first this users collection will be created, and then inside that users collection this document will be inserted. So let me go ahead and let me run this command, and you will see that this insert one method has returned us an object. In that object we have this acknowledged property which is true. That means this insert one command was executed successfully and it is acknowledged, and it is also giving us the ID of the inserted document. Here when I'm inserting this document, here I have not specified any ID property. So by default, when this document will be inserted in the users collection, there MongoDB server will add a unique ID for this document, and this is the value of that unique ID. And now if I go ahead and if I run show collections command, so it should be show collections, and if I press enter, you will see that now in this bookmystay database we have two collections. We have this hotels collection and we have this users collection. So when you want to create a collection explicitly, you can use this create collection method on the db object, and you can also create a collection implicitly by trying to insert a document in a collection which currently does not exist. So in that case, MongoDB server will first create that collection and then it will insert the document which you are trying to insert in that collection. Okay, let me clear the Mongo shell here. So we learned how we can create a collection. Now let's also learn what is a capped collection. So basically a capped collection is that collection which has a fixed size. And in order to create a capped collection, again on the db object, you can use create collection method, and as the first argument we have to specify the name for the collection. Here let's say I'm going to specify the name of the collection as logs, and then as the second argument here we can also pass a configuration object like this, where we can set capped to true. Now, when we create a capped collection, that means that collection is going to have a fixed size. So that size we can specify by using the size property, and let's say the size of this collection should not be more than 1024 byte. So here we are specifying a fixed size for the collection, and this is called as capped collection. So when you create a capped collection, you have to set this capped to true, and at that time you also need to specify the size of that collection. So this size is in bytes. And apart from these two properties, you can also specify a max property. This max property tell what should be the maximum number of documents which is allowed in this capped collection. So for example, if I set this max to 100, that means only 100 documents will be allowed in this capped collection. And we also have another property which is auto index ID. And if I set this auto index ID to true, what it is going to do is it is going to create an index on the ID field. Now, this we will understand in great detail in the coming lectures of this course. So for now, I'm going to remove this property because we have not talked about indexes yet. So I'm going to remove this property, and I'm also going to remove this max property. Okay. Now at this point, you might have this question that let's say the size of this logs collection has reached 1024 bytes. And after that, if you try to insert a new document in this collection, what will happen? In that case, when you try to insert a new document in a capped collection, the old document gets deleted automatically. Okay. So if I go ahead and if I run this command, it is going to create a capped collection. And now if we run show collections command, you will see that now we have three collections. We have this hotels collection, we have this logs collection, which is a capped collection. Its maximum size is 1024, and we have this users collection. All right. Now in the users collection, we inserted a document. So if you want to query all the documents from a collection on the DB object, you can access that collection. Here I want to access the users collection, and on that we have a method called find to query all the documents inside a collection. Here I want to query all the documents which is present inside this users collection. For that I'm using this find method. So if I go ahead and if I run this command, you will see that this find method has returned us an array, and in that array we have all the documents which is present inside this users collection. Currently in this users collection we have one document, so that document has been returned here. And finally, if you want to drop a collection, if you want to delete a collection from the database, you can use db object. On that, you can access the collection which you want to delete. Here, let's say I want to delete the logs collection, and on that you can use drop method. So what this drop method is going to do, it is going to delete this logs collection from the database to which this db object is pointing to. If I go ahead and if I run this command, this drop method, it has returned us a boolean value true. That means this logs collection is deleted. It is dropped successfully from this bookmystay database. And now if I go ahead and if I run show collections command, now you will see that in this bookmystay database, we have only two collections. We have this hotels collection and we have this users collection. So a collection in MongoDB is a flexible storage unit that stores related documents. And collections can be created explicitly using the create collection method like we are doing here. And it can also be created implicitly when we try to insert a document in a collection which currently does not exist. And if you want to list all the collections inside a database, you can use this show collections command. Here are some of the important commands which you can use in order to work with collections.